This is a study. As this is not a lecture, I expect everyone to participate, everyone to ask, everyone to make comments. And to benefit from this opportunity, it's better that we solve our doubts in the study. Otherwise, that doubt may remain with us for a long time. So this is a great opportunity. This is very informal way to study. And let's use that to our benefit, okay? So let me share with you all the Medium's book. We've stopped where is highlighted in yellow last weekend. Just a brief reminder, we are in this chapter 1, where Kardec has explained to us the differences between soul and spirits, asking us if we believe, if we not believe, making us to use our reason to compare what we believe, what people say, what we say. So to those that are joining us today, I would recommend that to get a book and read the beginning. So that would help to understand the way forward. And once again, feel free to jump, open your mic, make comments, questions, participate with us, okay? So one would have to know very little about Spiritism to think so. He's making that a statement in regards of some assumptions of what the Spiritism is or was, and that was explained before. However, this does not concern our adversaries, since the requirements that they must understand what they are talking about is of little interest to them. Just to put us in the mood, basically a lot of people that say that what the Spiritism preach doesn't make sense, is not true, is supernatural or whatever, is based on the lack of understanding of the people that sometimes are talking. It's very easy to us to express what we think. But it's important not to express what we think, it's express what we know. And how can we acquire knowledge about something? The only way I know is to study seriously the subject. I'm not talking about Spiritism, I'm talking about anything. And then when we understand that subject in particular, then we can express what we understood about that subject, not what I think. Thinking something very volatile, and I think something today, I may think something different tomorrow. So when we go in that argument with someone or to discuss with someone any subject, any matter, we should know the minimum, the basis to allow us to have a decent conversation, to elaborate theories, to elaborate thoughts in a way that we can benefit from it. According to them, the extraordinary is absurd. Spiritism is based upon extraordinary facts. Therefore, the Spiritism is an absurd. It may look like that. Yeah, I cannot argue about that. To someone that never opened a Spiritist book, never bothered to try to understand the basis, never had any exposure to the Spiritism, yeah, may believe everything is extraordinary, everything is not possible. But I need to remind us all that everything we find on the Spiritism is based on universal laws that we all obliged to obey. Sometimes we don't even know those laws, we ignore them, but the laws are there, driving our lives everywhere, every moment. So Spiritism is no magic. Spiritism is no extraordinary, like he's saying here, but Spiritism is based in facts, in exercises, in practice, in studies. For them, this is a sentence that cannot be upheld. They believe they are presenting an inconstantable argument when, after erudite research into the convulsionaries of Saint-Médard, the Camisards of Sévenance, or the nuns of Loud, Laudon in French, they arrive at the discovery of a fraudulent evidence that no one can contest. Let me talk about those places in France he's mentioning here. There is a particular part on the book that will explain a bit better, but some areas in France at that time, they had like a multiple convulsionary people. That's the way they call it at the time. People that were having strange symptoms, not one person, but several of them. And there are cities that are not even mentioned here, but it's close to Loudun, that they had hundreds of people having the same at the same time. And Kardec, he studied those events. The academy, the doctors at the time, they even went to those cities. They had studies, they have documentations that we can find in the National Library of France, if you want to research, is there. Not only the Spiritists, or Kardec, they were concerned about it, studied about it, but also the doctors at the time. They did a deep research and they could not find anything. Only Kardec, with Spiritism, were able to explain some of the facts. Saying that, not even Kardec went to those areas. He was studying through the facts that arrived to his hand in Paris. But some magnetists, they went over there, and they had also some reports about it. But are stories such as these, the gospel of the Spiritism? Have Spiritism supporters ever denied that charlatanism has exploited certain incidents to its own advantage? Well, what is charlatanism, right? We have that until today. A lot of people seeing that I see, that I can do, it's possible, and they do that because they want to make money, they do that for any particular reason. We can find that anywhere. We can find that in science. We can find that in our work, for example, people pretending to know what they're talking about, and in reality, they are not. And the Spiritism could not escape from that. We need to remember that we are all humans. We need to remember that the way the Spiritism started, it started in a saloon with people watching a table dance, a table talking. And a lot of people tried to make money of it. A lot of people tried to pretend that was happening. So my advice to everyone is not to consider that anything is from the spirits, not in the beginning. We have to eliminate every other possibility before we consider something is happening under the influence of a spirit. If we do that, we minimize the possibility of charlatanism from the humans, but we will not eliminate the possibility of charlatanism from the spirits. And we'll talk about that in the future. We have a different name for that, right? That imagination has engendered them. That imagination has engendered them. That fanaticism has exaggerated many of them. But Spiritism is no more responsible for extravagances.
No.
Hello? Anyone want to talk? Nice music indeed. Who is singing? Oh, okay. You don't want to sing anymore. Sorry for that. So, but Spiritism is no more responsible for the extravagances that may be committed to its name than is true science for the abuse of ignorance. You will see in many places of Kardec, Medium's book, Gospel, Spirit's book, he referred to Spiritism as a science. And a lot of people jump when they say Spiritism is also a science, because nowadays, a lot of people believe science is only based on instruments, is only based on what I can have from a machine, a result of a machine research. But it's not only like that. We have to remember that science is the art of observation. Hundreds of years ago, how was possible to do science without any instruments, without any microscope, satellites, whatever? Science was based in the observation of people with intellect, people with knowledge of a area. So they start observe things, right? If today we have penicillin that saved millions of lives, that was not using any instruments at all. There was the art of observation. Fleming, he observed a little fungus on the corner of his experiment. There was no instruments. And this is science. Science is observation. And we can observe things everywhere in our lives, at home, at work, even reading a book. If we open our minds, we will allow ourselves to perceive things that we haven't done before. For our beginners, or through religion for the excess of fanaticism. When we talk about religion, a lot of people ask if Spiritism is a religion or not. My answer is always one. It depends who you ask. But on the end of the day, does it matter if it is a religion, a philosophy, a science? Or is it important to understand the changes this product, let me call Spiritism a product, this product can do in our lives, can help those that are in need? If the result of what is presented by Kardec is understood as a science and is helping, perfect. If it's understood as a religion and is helping others, perfect. If it's understood as nothing else, but is still helping people, perfect. Because that's the goal of Spiritism. Help people, help ourselves, understand better where we are and what we are. Many critics only judge Spiritism in the light of fairy tales and popular legends, which are only its fictitious form. That is the same as judging history in the light of historical romance or tragedies. We have to remember that was written in the 1800s. But even today, this sentence applies. Why? A lot of people think that Spiritism is things that is only in our brain, things that do not exist, things like he says he's a fairy tale. Once again, I totally understand someone that never studied, never had any exposure to the Spiritism to say that is a fairy tale. But if we had some exposure, practical or not, to the Spiritism, very unlikely we'll keep that type of understanding or perception of a Spiritism is, because the practice will tell us otherwise, will show us otherwise. According to the most elementary logic, in order to discuss a matter, it is necessary to be thoroughly familiar with it. We spoke about that earlier today, right? Since critics' opinions are only worth anything when they speak with casual knowledge. So if you want to talk about something, we have to have knowledge about it. Otherwise, we're going to be saying something that is at least incomplete, not to say that's wrong. Even on people that are for decades in the Spiritism environment, not everyone studied, not everyone put enough effort to really understand what Kardec brought to us, or even the other mediums brought to us. And they make their own mind about things. And sometimes they even try to make their own Spiritism. But we should avoid that. We should understand what is written by Kardec. If we do not understand, we should ask. If we do not understand, let's get together to see if my perception is the same as the other people. And that's what we're doing here. We're trying to share different perceptions, right? Because who said that I'm right or I'm wrong? I don't know. You don't know. So the best way is to analyze what is written. try to interpret what is there. Only in this way can their opinion, even when erroneous, be taken seriously. Look how open Kardec was. Even if a perception was wrong, but if it was thoroughly evaluated, seriously studied, he would take on board. He would discuss, he would try to make sense of it. But how many times we have people telling us, oh, this is that. Why? Oh, because I think, honestly, I don't waste energy with that. Because I'm not here to convince anyone. That's not the goal of Spiritism. Spiritism does not exist to convince anyone of anything. But if we are seriously about it, we have a massive compendium of information from Kardec and others to help us to make a better understanding of what we are, where we're going to, where we came from, why things happening like that. There's a lot of different perceptions from the same things. Does it all match a clear analysis and understanding? Or there's some perception because that's the way I've been told? That's not what we want. We want everyone to analyze everything all the time. And if something does not make sense, ask, question others and ourselves. This is the must, in my opinion. But what weight can it carry? And it is applied to an unfamiliar matter. For example, if I decide to speak about quantum physics here, I'll say a lot of things that I think. But then if any of you here knows a bit better the subject and start to ask me questions, I will not be able to say. Or I will invent something to say just to be nice in the picture at the end of the day. But I will have no knowledge to discuss about it. So what is the weight of us talking about something we never study, we never bother to really going deeper? True critics must provide evidence. And then we have a problem. Oh, the soul does not exist. Prove it to me. There is no spirits. Such a thing does not exist. All right then, prove to me. Well, mediumship is someone that's losing the plot. No spirits exist, so no one can talk to anybody else. Okay, then prove to me. But quite often what happens is exactly the opposite. People asking us, prove that they exist. Why should we prove anything? Why should I prove myself? If I am a medium, if I know I can write, I can hear, I can talk, I can see the spiritual world around me, why do I need to prove anything? I don't, definitely not. If someone wants to have a deeper conversation about the subject, is really interested to understand, fair enough. But just for the sake of an argument, I do not waste my energy. Definitely not. I have things more important to do. So critics must provide evidence. If we say something is not happening, this is totally fair. But it's down to you to show that why it does not exist, why it's not happening. Prove to me otherwise. And now talking about me, I'm very open to change my conceptions, because I understand some of my conceptions may be wrong, maybe even more than some may be wrong. But then you have to show me something that makes more sense than what I believe, that makes more sense than what the practice of the mediumship proved to me already. If you are able to prove me something or prove me wrong, I will change. I have no problem at all, because this is part of evolution. We learn with others, we learn with different developments. Even Kardec said that eventually science would prove things, and the Spiritism had to follow science. So who am I to say otherwise? It's better follow the teacher. Kardec is the teacher, not me. But from a profound knowledge of the object under consideration and with absolute impartiality of judgment. When we go into our discussion of what is possible, what is not possible, we need to keep our heart and mind open. Because if we go to a discussion, to a study, just for the sake of prove myself right, you're not going to learn anything. You're not going to gain anything. If I don't know, but let's say I have someone here that really do not believe in anything we are saying. He's here just to say that I was right. You see, that is not possible. You are wasting your time because we will not have a quarrel. We will not have a discussion, and we are not here to convince you otherwise. But if the experiences, the events, the knowledge brought to us, even by Kardec, change your mind, perfect. If not, perfect as well. That's not our goal. Otherwise, any minstrel could assume the right to judge Rossini, and its muralist could critique Rafael. I really don't know who Rossini or Rafael is, but the bottom line is we should not judge anyone. But if you decide to judge something, we have to have a solid basis to judge something. To evaluate something, we need to have a solid basis. Hi, Munir. Help me. Who is Rossini?
Rossini is a musician. And
oh,
I think Rafael is the painter. What I was going to say, Guilherme, is that Kardec is very clear when he says we have to use logic, we have to use a scientific method. Not science, but a scientific method. So we should always evaluate a fact to see if it's possible or if it's not, to think of all the possible explanations, to explore them through logic or experimentally if we can, but at least through logic, and see which one makes sense. That's why he says, he talks about spiritists as well, because some people, they quickly read the books and they think they know everything about the doctrine. And then they create this wrong idea about spiritism and spirits and so on. And then everything is the work of the spirits. Everything, you know, I dropped a coin, it's the work of the spirit. So we should always think of the possible possibilities for, you know, that situation, explore them. Does it make sense? Okay, let's assume it makes sense. Okay, so what are the consequences of that? And then explore this. That's why he said it's not because we accept that the survival of the soul that we accept all these fantastic things and take them, you know, for granted. So whatever miraculous happen, we say, oh no, these are the spirits acting, the spirits doing this or doing that. And it's interesting. Nowadays, we still see people saying that, oh, I don't believe in the survival of the soul because no one has ever come back to tell us about, you know, the other side. This is the perception of the person. It's one person, perhaps he or she has never talked to anyone or read anything that would convince him or her about the survival of the soul. But there are so many people around who have experienced that, some on a daily basis, you know, and so they can't use that as an argument. But some people prefer, you know, this, oh, this, you know, it's okay for me, I accept that, so I don't believe in survival. And sometimes because for them it's easier, they don't have to think about the consequences of what they are doing now, if they have to, you know, to face that later.
Totally, totally. And when you were talking, when something came to my mind, right? The danger of believe that we know everything. Quite often people coming to us, oh, you know, this person has an obsession case. This person has been possessed. This person is fascinated about something. And then we need to stop the person, give me facts. Let me ask you a few things to allow me to come to the same conclusion as you. And then we start to make questions. What about this? How that happened? How often that happened? Blah, 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 blah. And quite often, on the end of their quick analysis, oh, my brother, I cannot come to the same conclusion as you. If all the facts is what you show me here, I cannot say it's an obsession case. I cannot say this person's fascinated. I cannot say anything. And then you start to ask to understand how the person comes to that conclusion. how often you study? Do you have weekly studies? Well, no. Okay, how long this person that made that analysis is studying the Spiritism, is part of the Spiritism? Well, this person is like 2 years in the Spiritism. Okay, then it's a good start, but we have so much things to learn before we make assumptions, before we say things. And we have to remember that everything that comes out from our mouth, even when we expect to help the person with those words, the result may not be like that. And we are accountable for everything and anything we say and do. So let's not make assumptions because I read a book or because I'm studying a matter, a subject for 2 years, because we need a couple of lives to study over and over and over before we really start to understand some of the subjects.
Yeah. And you see, logic. Sorry.
No.
I was just going to finish. Yeah, to say that Kardec was so confident in logic and the scientific method that he said, if one day science, and I mean through scientific method, proves that something in Spiritism is wrong, he said, you stay with science, saying that, yes, if logic has been applied, if the method has been thoroughly applied, and they got to that conclusion, stick to that.
Hi, Liz. You know.
Hi, guys. I just wanted to comment, and that whenever we are thinking about something, or even when we are, well, it can be anybody, especially scientists in many ways, we always put things in a way that is based on our experiences, the way we are feeling, our prejudices, our concepts of things. And when we are analyzing one idea, we always have to be very aware of these things, not to influentiate the outcome of what really is there in front of us. And many of us, as you were saying about critics, and when people talk, we are very easily to talk a lot about things that we don't know, because we can talk days and nights about things that we don't know. But the more we understand, the more we know things, and we know the layers, the complexities, it becomes harder for us to make up a critic, because we know there are many things involved in a particular subject. And when we think about things, are we really thinking about the meaning of that thing? Are we really thinking where it is coming from? I always like to have a little research about things, even the most simple things, and just to place myself in in history, what's going on, and what was the context, and what was people thinking, and all these things, to trying to make sense of this all before we actually say, oh yeah, I know something. And as you said, there's so much in the world that we don't know. And it is really hard for us to say we know anything, because we know so little.
I think that's the key, to allow ourselves to evolve. We know very little, very, very little, right? And two things came to my mind when you were talking, Liz. Recently, I don't know if Charles is in the room, but he sent something to me, and I start to digest the. Hi, Charles. I start to digest the information of a true research about Spiritism, and I know other events back in Brazil, they are also doing true research scientifically, following method, a registered method in the government to allow them to proceed with the experiment. So they are taking blood from people before and after the event of the exercise they're doing. So they have how to quantify, how to measure the true effect or what was done based on the Spiritism phenomena. So there's a lot of things, really a lot of things, but we decide to ignore all of it. We don't want to pay attention on it, and we want to make our own understanding and assumption of things. So science is, was, and will be always a very important part of Spiritism, right? And I do have a practice. There's a lot of things through the years that I changed my mind. And sometimes I got a book and something that I could not swallow at all. I said, no, this is far too much for me here. I can't. I did not throw the book away. I never said the book was bad, but I kept the book on the shelf for years. And as we go along, as we evolve, as we acquire more knowledge about a subject, one day I thought, let me read again that book. And everything that was written in that book was perfectly clear and made sense for me. Likewise, when we study André Louis' books, we are having a particular study about André Louis' book, right? But every time we read that book again and again, we learn something different. We are always acquiring new information, new knowledge. Now that I know that Charles is here, what do you think about that, Charles?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yes, I fully agree. And what is interesting is Kardec is speaking here in the previous paragraph at the third person. They do this, they reject that, they... So he's not talking directly to them. He's talking to the people who are influenced by those people who are basically disbelieving anything, destructing everything, and so on. And Kardec is just demonstrating in this paragraph that that's not the correct attitude. When you have phenomena, when you have people which are like these convulsionnaires and Loudun and so on that are listed in the text, you have to find a way to help them. And if it's out of the possibility of science, then you have to investigate and to complement science accordingly. That's basically the big message from Kardec on this topic. Now, of course, what Kardec did is he applied the methodology of positivism, basically. He always used the adjective positive. So both from Descartes, from Cartesian approach, and also from Auguste Comte, the positivism approach. So he took the best out of the science, but he rejected or omitted to take the weakest things of science, which is basically by the materialist paradigm and the atheism and all those things, because he reached opposite conclusions. And that's as simple as it is. I don't know if I answered fully to Lee's concern, but...
I think so. I think so. And you know that I spent some time studying the cases they had in Morzine at the time, right?
Yes.
And I went to the level that I went to some of the universities in Lyon, and I went to the Bibliothèque Nationale de France to find some of the documents written by doctors, by some people that went there. And when you compare that with what Kardec said, it's a match, you know. So that proves that what he brought to us, he had a massive work to prepare. He had contact with people at his time, doctors, you name it.
Yeah.
So that there's a basis on everything.
And Morzine was at the beginning, just after Spiritism codification, this 1860 or whatsoever. But the other one, Séven, Loudun, and so on, was several decades before. Yeah. But it was a known episodes that basically never went really solved, and there was a lot of speculation around it, which he also explains the inconvenience in this text. Basically, he's just calling to have a rational, rigorous approach to this mediumistic phenomenon, which is then the purpose of the book, which we are starting to study now.
Indeed. Indeed. So Let me move on a little bit more. Therefore, Spiritism does not accept all facts that may be regarded as extraordinary or supernatural. Far from it. Instead, it demonstrates the impossibility of a great number of them and the foolishness of some of the beliefs that comprise superstition per se. I don't remember how many times people come to us in the Spiritist Center saying, oh, well, I have a problem with the spirits, blah, 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 is this, is that, blah, blah, blah. And that was not. There was something that they thought was related to the Spiritism, thought was related to the spirits, thought was, and there was not. We have to understand that superstition and people beliefs also play a very important role in individuals' perception. But Spiritism does not have superstition, does not count on superstition. A superstition is a phenomena that's not well understood yet. Everything has a law guiding us through it. Everything has an explanation. Sometimes we haven't found yet means to understand, means to prove, but it doesn't mean that the law does not exist. Oops. It is true that among the spirit's phenomena that Spiritism accepts, there are some that these believers regard as unequivocally extraordinary in nature. In other words, they represent superstition. Let me just give an example to see if you all agree with me here. Let's say that we were having this meeting face to face in the 1900s, let's say 1920, okay? And then someone started to talk about, we will have a meeting through a machine virtually. Not now, in the next 50 years, 100 years, we'll be together again, having the same type of study, but not face-to-face anymore. Would you believe that? Very unlikely. If I say to you today that in 30 years' time, we will not use the Zoom anymore. We will use teletransportation. We'll press a button, we'll teletransportate to a preset meeting room, we'll have our study, and when we finish, we press the other button and we return to our houses. What would you say about me? That I'm totally crazy. That is not possible. Yes, that's not possible today. Tomorrow, I don't know. The way science is evolving, I really do not know. Because they were able already to do that with microscopic cells. So eventually, that may happen. Who knows? As they wish. However, they should add at least limits to the discussion to these, because they have nothing to say regarding the others. They will be preaching to the already converted. So this thing here is very important. Why are you going to preach for someone that don't want to believe it anyway? You're not going to change people's mind, not at all. By criticizing what Spiritism itself refutes, they demonstrate their ignorance about the subject and they miss the mark. But how far can the Spiritism belief reach? You will ask. Read and observe, and you will understand. Something comes to my mind when we talk about that. If I only being exposed to books, I read all Kardec's books, I read all Chico Xavier books. So I spent decades reading those books. But if I never had an exposure to a mediumship, for example, how will I believe in mediumship? How can I say that's something that I understood, is 100% right. Why I'm saying that? Because there's a lot of Spiritists that only like to participate in lectures, only like to read books and certain types of books. And it's not possible to understand Spiritism in a single life, in my opinion. So it's not possible to understand Spiritism if I only read a type of book, if I only participate in lectures. It's not possible. We need to put our hands on. We need to have exposure to the practice, to the actions, to the phenomena. And then when we have that, together with the books, and then things start to make more sense. Acquiring any science demands time and study. I have to stop here. Once again, our friend Kardec is making a comparison with Spiritism and science. And to absorb that, we need to allow ourselves to give time, to allocate time in our agenda to study. If you hear anyone in the Spiritism centers telling you that you don't need to study, go away. This person is completely wrong. Completely wrong. Spiritist has to study from day one until the last day, even beyond, by the way. But let's assume we have to study until the last day, because we know very little. And science is no different than that. I would ask you something. If you have a medical problem, would you prefer to go to a doctor that did the university and never open a book after that? Or would you prefer to go to a doctor that did the university, did a doctorate, is still studying every year? Which one would you prefer? I think I would prefer the doctor that is trying to keep up with the new technology, is trying to keep up with all the theories. So we have to be the same, in my opinion, at least. And Spiritism, which addresses the most serious questions of philosophy in every sector of the social order, and which encompasses both the physical and moral individual at the same time, is a complete science and philosophy in itself. I don't think Kardec could be clearer than that. Is a complete science and philosophy in itself. And it cannot be assimilated in only few hours. It's impossible. It's impossible. When someone comes to you talking about something, how often you study? Do you have weekly studies? Do you participate in studies? We have to ask. Because I heard in the past someone saying that I don't need to study because my benefactor, my mentor, knows everything already. I heard that. And I was shocked. I was shocked because that's, no benefactor will say that. So there was the laziness of the person not to dedicate half an hour a day, 1 hour per week to study. Simple as that. And Spiritism is commitment. If I participate in a mediumship meeting, I need to take that seriously. If I'm participating in a study, I need to take that seriously. It's not participate when I don't have anything else to do. Because you're not going to learn. You're not going to develop your mediumship. Mediumship, Spiritism as a whole, demands commitment. We need to be serious about it. Kardec is telling us in different ways we need to study. We need to open a period of time in our agenda to study, to participate, to contribute. I have another hand. Hi, Yasmin.
Yes, good evening. Sorry, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I'm Jasmine, living in Japan, and I would just like to say I agree with what you're saying, because I couldn't find it again, but 2 weeks ago I was reading the Gospel according to Spiritism, and at the end of the book, but I couldn't find it again, so I'm a bit frustrated. I remember it was written that if we have a mediumship, it's mostly because we asked for it. We asked for it before, and so it is. Of course, it is a part of our job to help within mediumships meeting and so on. But it's also, why are we doing it? I mean. Honestly, I've never I've never taken part yet to a mediumship meeting, because, well, I haven't studied enough yet to do so, I think, and my job was so complicated. Well, and the fact is, but if, for example, take Chico Xavier, who has done so much for people, and the fact is, why do you want to use your mediumship for? And I think it's also a good question to ask. So I was just doing. Thank you. Sorry.
Yasmin, that question we have to ask ourselves. We that are mediums, we need to ask ourselves every day. Why I want to use, what is the benefit? What is the goal of my mediumship? Why I want to use my mediumship for? And this is to help others. Mediumship exists to help others. And when we are helping others, we are helping ourselves. We are helping ourselves. And then I use the same question. You want to be a medium that becomes a reliable medium that people trust, that the Spiritists trust, or you want to be a medium that you dedicate your time from time to time when you have nothing else to do? Because that make a massive difference, massive difference. Right? You said about us being mediums, prepared to be mediums. We are prepared to be mediums before we incarnated. When we are here, we have the right to be or not to be. But every decision we use, we have the free will to use, also have consequences. We can do whenever, anything we want. But the harvest of our decisions, our choices, we cannot say no. That's a law. Action and reaction. That's a law. So yeah, pretty good. I like your comments. Oops. So I just have one thing that I need to say.
God.
My God. We're eating slow tonight.
Yes?
What? You didn't like it?
Yeah, but
We put 2 hours there, no?
Yes? Talking to me?
okay.
And we eat, what we eat, we put it in the fridge because I could not cut.
I cannot hear what you're saying. If you really want to talk, I need to ask you to say again. Okay? Anyway, what I want to say to you, Yasmin, is that you said you haven't studied enough to participate in a mediumship meeting. Don't be misled that you need to study a university to be part of a mediumship meeting, right? A lot of people will say, yes, you have to. Ask them to show you in Kardec where is written that you have to study X amount of time to participate in a mediumship meeting. If you find that, if anyone find that, please tell me, because I don't think it's written there anywhere, right? So there are cases to cases. Hi, Yasmin.
Yeah, so to give some precisions about that, actually, when 10 years ago, we didn't have a group with enough knowledge or enough. We had a group to study gospel, but we didn't have any mediumship purposes at that time. And then I stopped studying, and I went on working and studying at university, so on. Well, but yeah, you're right. I agree. Thank you.
Cool. So once again, only a few hours is not enough to know about anything. Spiritism is not different, which is true for any other science. It would be very childish to see the whole of Spiritism in a turning table, just as it would be to see the whole of physics in a few children's toys. For whoever does not want to remain on the surface, months and years, rather than hours, will have to be spent in order to probe all its mysteries. In light of this, decide for yourself the degree of understanding and the value of the opinion of those who assume for themselves the right to judge simply because they have seen one or two experiments by way of entertainment or pastime. He's making a reference here to people that goes on the saloon and see things happening, like not serious things, and then making up their own mind. But I would extend that sentence from Kardec to everything related to the Spiritism, everything related to the mediumship, everything. As I said earlier today, sometimes it's not because I read a book that I am expert of something. Sometimes I haven't even read properly. I just clicking pages instead of read and study. And there is a difference between read and study seriously a subject. So if in your life you see someone saying something about mediumship, spiritism, or anything, start making questions. How do you know that? How long you've been exposed to that thing? Do you have a regular routine study or something like that? Start to make those questions, because that will give you at least there is a meter. It's a meter to allow you to know if you must encompass what has been said, or if you need to study a bit more and elsewhere to have a better understanding of the subject. What time is it? 24. Let me read another sentence, and that will be it for today. No doubt, they will state that they do not have the time needed for such a study. As they wish, nothing so oblige them. However, if you do not have time to learn about a matter, you cannot talk about it, let alone make judgments about it. I love Kardec because he's very straightforward. He's spot on. He's not worried about my word will, that people are so sensitive, I cannot say that word. No, he is very direct. And the message is very clear. Unless you want to be accused of being irresponsible. He couldn't be clearer. The more elevated the position you occupy in a science, the less excusable you will be if you thoughtlessly try to address a subject with which you are unfamiliar. I will mark this whole because I think it's beautiful. This is showing to us who was Kardec, giving us the messages very straight. If you're not happy with the way they say, so be it. But he had to bring the message in a way that was clear enough to everyone to understand, So I will stop here. Let me save, so that will not disappear. Let me stop sharing. Oh, there's a lot of people in the room. I haven't seen you guys because when I see the book, I don't see everyone. So I think that was a good opportunity to all of us here. Anyone want to make any final comment? No? You are very shy today.
Only remember that the people, when they are curious about mediumship and starting doing things on their own without really even read Kardec or prepare themselves, they could be in trouble.
There is a safe way to get involved. Spirits, there is a safe way to participate in a mediumship meeting. I strongly recommend, like Elsa said, to find people that are used to it. They are familiar with the problems that may arise as well, because we may find problems everywhere we go. People that are serious, earnest study, and then